Around this time of the year when people are starting to go back to school, time management becomes even more important. Families are more stressed because the school schedules may have changed, there may be different activities that you have to deal with, or just regular holiday time that's coming up. I don't have time for this. I wish I had more time. I would love to have time to start that project. Well, there may be things that you are doing pointedly that you can stop that are causing time management issues. So in today's video, we're going to talk about time management killers and how to avoid them. The first one probably will seem pretty obvious, but still many people just don't do it. And it's writing things down. We can't possibly remember everything we want going on and happening in this brain. We can't be expected to do that with everything else that's hitting us daily, okay? It's all right. We're not superhuman. So if we can make use of our calendars, of reminder notices, of just a regular brain dump, you will see a huge difference in the time management skills or how quickly things do get done. I love to use, my husband and I use Google Calendar, if I could say that correctly, for basic stuff, even like changing the fish filter, flipping the mattresses, doing our, net worth calculation twice a year, checking our credit score, or, getting, the dog his teeth cleaned. We utilize the Google calendars for everything, even things so small as changing the air conditioning filter, because those things can get past you. They really can. And then in the meantime, you're not treating your air conditioning unit well. You end up spending a ton of money because it's gotten all dusty and gross and it's not working properly. So you're spending more money just, in electricity every month. These things are much more important than just time management. They can save you money, and they definitely save you stress, reducing the stress. Brain dumping is fantastic because when we have so much stuff in our brain, you ever notice, let's say I need to call Sally and ask her about what the date of that wedding shower is. And then you don't write it down, you don't do anything about it, and then the next thing you know, 2 days later, I need to call Sally, I really do, and ask her what the date of that wedding shower was. And it just keeps coming up like a bad commercial. It keeps hitting you. Well, if you write it down, make a list, make an action item, maybe you know that Sally gets off work at 5 p.m. and usually Monday through Thursdays are the best days for her. Set yourself a reminder on Tuesday at 4:30, hey, call Sally at 5 p.m. Something super simple like that can make a huge difference. Number 2 is multitasking. Yeah, this is one I do a lot too. It's a problem. And this is probably one of my biggest hurdles and the reason for my time management issues is I don't finish one project before going to another, which is a whole nother problem on its own. But multitasking, which means, let's say you're trying to type an email, but you're listening to a podcast. Or let's say you're trying to help your child with homework, but you've got the news blaring in the background. Those types of things, the brain doesn't do well trying to focus and go 2 different directions, right? It's like if you ever heard, you're sitting in a restaurant, you're trying to listen to conversation. I love just like listening to people sometimes. But you can't possibly focus in your hearing on 2 different things and understand the dynamic of exactly what's going on in the 2 different conversations, right? So that's what multitasking does. So if you could try to, turn off the podcast for 5 minutes, you will finish that email and then maybe you turn the podcast back on. If you're doing something mindless, it's not a problem. But if you're doing something where you have context in it, or you really have to utilize brain power, meaning your subconscious can't just peck away at a Excel spreadsheet, then multitasking is just not good for those things that have to be single-mindedly focused. Number 3 is not setting clear deadlines or a timeline for a project. So again, I'm going to call Sally on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Or if you're starting a new business, well, I would really like to have everything up and running by January 1st of the next year. Okay, what do I need to do each month to get there. You've got to plan backwards, right? That's pretty much how you utilize goal planning. But not setting those deadlines just it doesn't set any expectation of when something's going to be done. So this is also something you'll hear from people when they talk about, within a company and email communication is, say, for instance, I said, I need a bid on this project. I would like to receive this back by September the 1st. Putting that expectation helps people out because they can't possibly know what your expectation is. So if you wanted it back within 48 hours and you did not clearly state that, and then when you don't get it back in 48 hours, you're upset, it's actually your fault because you didn't clearly set the expectation for the deadline that you needed that thing. You help both yourself and the other people involved in whatever it is that you need to set a deadline for if you do that. And it's a realistic time frame, and you can work off of that in chunks to reach the end goal. A huge time management killer is being disorganized, especially if you're getting ready to go start something that's really been gnawing at you that you really do not want to do because it's going to take a lot of brain power and you're not going to be able to listen to your favorite podcast or Netflix show in the background. But then you get to go do it and the house is a mess or your desk is covered in papers. It's just, now you've got to deal with this when you were ready to go and no, that's no good. Being organized ahead of time, one of my favorite things to do is at the end of the day, if you're at the end of the workday, put your papers at least together in maybe certain stacks so it looks nice. That really, there's something about it with your brain and how your brain perceives a next action when it sees a clean surface. For me, I cannot stand it when I go into the kitchen to make dinner and the kitchen's a mess. It can't happen. Now, after I make the dinner or during it, I make the kitchen a mess. But to start out with, I need the clean kitchen. And then, whatever happens from there is fair game. A big time management killer is always saying yes. This is where you need to set clear boundaries. Do I need to do a video on setting boundaries? For the longest time, people talked about boundaries and I didn't know what they were talking about. Meaning boundaries within, how you're treated, how you treat people, things you say yes to or things you say no to. Let me know down in the comments below if you want me to do a video all about boundaries because I have some information on it for sure. But basically saying yes to everything is not good because you can't possibly do it all, nor do you want to. Sometimes you might have to say, let me think on that for a bit because somebody may have caught you off guard. You haven't looked at your calendar, so you're not really sure. It is okay. And that other person would probably rather you do the same and say, let me think on this for a bit, or let me get back to you after I check my calendar or check with the other people within my household. That's really going to save you a lot of time because you're also going to preserve the other person's time because you're not going to set an unrealistic expectation that, yes, I can be part of this board or of this group. Yes, I can bring that snack to that event and then end up having to cancel in the long run. The next one is only focusing on the end result. And what do I mean by that? I talked about it a bit earlier, but basically, let's say you want to renovate your patio and make it a sunroom, okay? Then you think about renovating the patio, looking at it as a sunroom. Well, what do you need to do to get there? You have to break these things down into smaller bite-sized tasks, just like you would goals, so that you can get to the end result, okay? You don't eat the pizza all at once. So if you're renovating the patio, right? The first thing you might want to do is look on Pinterest to find some design ideas of what you're thinking about. The next thing you might do is go ahead and briefly look at your budget to see what even is the amount that you could spend. Next, you're going to reach out maybe to some people to see who is a good contractor and get quotes on the work. Then you might go look at some other examples of work that contractor's done. There are little steps along the way that are going to get you to where you need to be. For time management purposes, you might want to have this done by the fall so that you can enjoy, the patio at that time. But how do you get there? Well, we need to set a time when we can sit down and look at examples. by this week, maybe on this date, we're going to sit down and see if we can reach out to a couple of contractors. Well, what date are you home that some of those contractors can come by? So by breaking these things down in little bite-sized pieces and planning them out, you're going to save time, because inevitably some of these projects, if you don't break them down into smaller pieces, and again, this could be starting a business, it could be anything. I'm just using the renovation as an example. Those things, they take too much time if you haven't identified the smaller steps in between. I'm sure you've heard it takes a village. Well, what I mean by that is not asking for help, meaning you can't do it all on your own. And if you're like me, I'm a very hands-on person who likes to control what I'm doing. I trust in myself to get it done. And if I don't get it done, it's my own fault, But I have a hard time delegating, and I've come to realize that other people can absolutely help you, and to reach out and to ask, even if they're just a sounding board for some ideas. That doesn't mean you have to go along with, would you like this version or that version better? That doesn't mean you have to decide on what they said they prefer, but they could mention something or bring something up or have a good idea that could help you along the path of whatever it is you're doing, okay? If you're starting a business, well, have you thought about this? Well, that's actually something I hadn't thought about. Thank you. It could also be, hey, is there any way we can start a carpool for the kids' activities because it's just stressing us all out? Is there any way that we, instead of doing a dinner out for the birthday, can do something where we have everybody bring a potluck? Would you be able to organize that? Because in the past, I've been responsible. My priorities, I just got a lot going on right now. Reaching out and asking for help, because we can't possibly do it all on our own. And the last one I'm really going to try to emphasize, because this is super, super important, but it's taking time for you. Don't overload yourself. Don't stress yourself out if you don't make one of these deadlines. It's okay. The world's not gonna end because of that. Just reevaluate. For instance, let's say you had planned something big to do this weekend and the dog got sick, so you ended up spending 4 hours at the vet. It's okay. Those things are going to happen, and life happens, and you have to learn how to try to be in ease and flow, because the more you try to get mad about it or push up against it, the more stress you're causing on yourself. So it is okay. These are best practices, meaning do what you can out of them. And if you can maybe implement one or two, or implement it on this idea or that idea, then you will start to make progress and it will grow from there. But also remember to make time for you. So recenter, to be within yourself, because if you are pulled in 16 different directions and you never get you time, you cannot help somebody stand up if you can't stand up on your own 2 feet, right? So you have to worry about making sure you're grounded, you're centered, and you are in, the peak position or peak performance of yourself in order to do well in any of this. Is there anything that you all have struggled with time management, that you have any tips that you could share with all of us here watching? Let us know down in the comments below. Maybe there's a book, a system, a program, an idea, something simple that have really made a huge difference in your time management. Put that down below. I would love to read it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you back for more videos.